Oh, hello. Nice to see so many people online already. I think we'll be welcoming a few more people as we get into the hour. Let me just share my screen. We were just trying to sort this out with our guests earlier. So if anyone can tell me, can we see my slideshow?
Sure can.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much. So, I'd like to welcome everyone to our ninth Spotlight Series Health Translation Essay. This topic is on communicating your research. Um, my name is Agustina Gancia. I'm the lead of the capacity building initiatives at HTSA, and I'll be your host for this series that will run for the whole month of September. And like I said, we are focusing on the topic of communicating your research, which is one aspect of research translation. Before we begin, I'd just like to acknowledge the Ghana people as the traditional custodians of the Adelaide region. We recognize the Ghana people's cultural, spiritual, physical, and emotional connection with their land. We also honor and pay our respects to Ghana elders, both past and present, and all generations of Ghana people now and into the future. And I am aware that one of our presenters is interstate, and a few people who have registered are also interstate. So it'd be really lovely if people would put in the chat or the Q&A where they're coming from and what lands they're joining us from. So what is the Spotlight Series? This is a bit of a little introduction that we do each time, just to inform the newcomers to our initiative about what this is, why does this exist? The Spotlight Series was an initiative that was launched in 2021 by HTSA, and the aim, I guess, to raise people's awareness on and educate people on the different aspects of research translation that are really key to ensure that your research then gets translated or used by the next users. And we do this through a month-long focused education initiative. So for a whole month, we'll be delving into one topic with weekly webinars, providing online resources through our social media channels, and sharing publications or links to books or links to training specifically for that topic. And I mentioned before, this is our ninth series, and you can go to the HTSA website to see the other series. Now, just briefly, I won't go into much detail here. Who's HTSA? Why do we run this? Well, we are an NHMRC accredited research translation center. We have 11 committed and active partners, and we basically just act as an independent catalyst to mobilize collaborations across the state and across our partners to really enable timely and effective adoption of research outcomes across the South Australian health system. And what we try to do is to connect everyone together. So like I said, we are an independent catalyst and broker. We connect people from the different spheres from, we build capacity, we connect with policymakers, with health services, we connect researchers to their key stakeholders to ensure that research findings are translated into action as quickly as possible. And so the Spotlight series fall into our capacity building. Today we have a really exciting first webinar on communicating your research. We have two great guests. We have Professor Claire Collins joining us from the University of Newcastle, and Christy Schirmer, who is joining us from Zockmelon, who's a social media consultancy service specifically for health promotion and health in general. Claire will deliver the first presentation on, I guess, the impact of effective communication and what impact it's had on her nutrition research. And Christy will tell us more on how to promote your research via the medium of social media, what's the current landscape, and what are some of the tips to gain maximum reach. So I will introduce Claire now and then hand it over to her. But before I do that, I just wanted to inform everyone, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. Um, and we can open a Q&A session after we hear from Claire and Christy. So if you have questions and you don't want to forget them, just put them in the chat box. And then after we hear from Claire and then Christy, we can go over those questions. So Claire Collins, AO, is a laureate professor in nutrition and dietetics at the College of Health, Medicine and Wellbeing at the University of Newcastle. She's also the co-director of the Food and Nutrition Research Program at Hunter Medical Research Institute, and she's also a life member of Dietitians Australia. She's an internationally distinguished leader in nutrition and dietetics. She was awarded the Officer of the Order of Australia in January 2023 for her distinguished service to nutritional health and dietetics research, scientific organizations, and science communication. So a perfect fit for our presentation today, for our session today. So I will stop sharing and hand it over to Claire right now.
I'm hoping you can see my screen.
Sure can.
All good, Claire.
Perfect, Claire.
Okay, great. Now do up your seatbelts. I'm going to talk as fast as I can because I love this topic. Everybody wins when you aim to make an impact in research. I'd like to acknowledge the Awabakal people whose lands that I live on in Newcastle and their elders past, present and emerging. So you might wonder, who am I? I never thought I would have a PhD or that I would be a science communicator. And I graduated in 1982 and pretty much did a range of part-time jobs right through most of the 90s. But while I was raising my children, my profession decided to test the water on media training. And I put my hand up and said, I'd like to do that. And that was in 1989. And the key thing they told us was to be proactive. I wrote to the ABC radio, the Newcastle TV station, and the Newcastle Herald, snail mail, no internet in those days. And I ended up, and still do, work with all of them. Then I moved on to do my PhD part-time. I was working as a cystic fibrosis dietitian 1 day a week, doing freelance media work and doing my PhD part-time. I eventually got my PhD at the end of the century, and then I moved over to the university in a 50% balanced academic, teaching and research role, and I stayed juggling all of that part-time until I got my first NHMRC fellowship in 2010. But the research and the communication and a professional background where you have to explain complex science to people in order to help them live more healthy lives consolidated my passion. This is my research to action cycle, evidence synthesis, developing methods and validating them with biomarkers, developing interventions and then translating them. But at the heart is nutrition, science, communication. So why should you work with the media? And in nutrition, if we don't, who will? And plenty of people do, and this is why misinformation is so rife when it comes to nutrition. The average research paper just gets a few citations, yet translating your research through the media extends the reach. It brings it faster and closer to the people for whom we're doing the research in the first place. And this is some stats. Your university, like mine, will do media monitoring on you. And this is my personal report. So this is just the reach, that 5 million something, the number of people who've been reached just in 1 year when my name is mentioned along with the university's name in their media monitoring. And you'll see over on the right that most of my reach comes through radio and online. And I'll show you why that is in a little while. So working with the media promotes your research. It does all of these things. And let's just talk about promoting your research. Well, the way I work with my university for promoting the research is often to get people in to the studies. So a media release to recruit, or sometimes it's a media release because we think it's a pretty hot paper. Occasionally, you even get invited by a journal to hold and embargo your research, and they'll do a massive release. If you think it's really groundbreaking, I would approach the journal when your paper's being accepted as to whether this qualifies for an embargo with a timed media release from your uni. But still share all of your papers via whatever social media platform that you want to use. Our university has a local radio station, and I often talk about a research paper, or maybe it's a podcast or the conversation. So in your publications, when you go to your online publications, our university hosts all our publications online, and I can click on the altmetrics, this coloured donut, to see whether my papers are having any impact. If you're writing an investigator grant, this is really important. This is our hottest paper with an altmetric score of 261. It would be in the top 1% of altmetrics. But what's important about that coloured donut is each colour means something. So for an investigator grant, particularly where you've got to say if your papers do anything, that purple is the policy documents. So that particular paper has been cited in 8 policy documents already. This gives you a clue to whether your research is being received by people in power. Working with the media helps you build a profile. And whether it's, I'm still sad that Twitter is dead. I don't like X. But whether it's LinkedIn, where a lot of researchers seem to have moved to, Instagram, whatever you want to use, I would encourage you, because this builds a profile. When journalists are looking for experts, it may be that they've found you through your social media profile. It's important to play fair, I think, in social media. It's not about just one way pushing your stuff. Follow people whose work you like people's work that's interesting, congratulate them on their success. And most of these social media platforms are like giant filing cabinets. If you want to find that topic, use a hashtag. I would often use hashtag nutrition. So the media and social media, I think they don't need fake news or boring news. And it's up to us to make our research interesting and digestible for people, not the other way around. People will never struggle through one of our research papers, but the journals, I think, are trying to help us now. Most journals want an infographic, a brief pictorial summary of what's the bottom line of your research paper. And really, it's like an online poster. What's the key takeaways? So using social media to promote your research, it may be that there's a call to action that you want to reinforce from your paper. That may be the headline quotable quote. And then disseminate that through your professional networks. We will sometimes take this approach to writing a policy brief from our papers to try and inform government. For one of my PhD candidates, we did this in terms of childhood obesity. We developed an online e-health program. We asked 2 state governments if they'd like to read and or contribute to the policy brief. One said they would give us feedback. The other said they'd like to co-author, and they then offered that postdoc a job. That's the most successful impact of trying to do a policy brief. The other key thing is you can talk to consumers directly. You can correct misinformation, and you are doing research translation. The conversation is an absolute gold mine. I love writing for the conversation, and we have definitely pitched articles to them to help bust those myths. And this is just some of the most recent ones. And I've written a couple of articles for them on Ozempic, which is a hot topic where there's a lot of information. Or sometimes they ask you, like that bottom one there, a curious kids question on how come some farts feel hot. You can have a lot of fun trying to help the media answer their questions as well. And this is what you get in exchange for writing with them. I've got over 15 million readers from around the world, and that on the right-hand side, most of my readers are actually in the United States. You can address misinformation, as I said. So these are some of the articles that my team and I have pitched when we wanted, there is just so many myths, we've wanted to correct them for myth busting. So 8 diet myths busted, 5 supplements that claim to speed up weight loss, and here's what the science says. And it's a little bit of a work both ways, because those two articles, we use them as a prelude to get people to participate in our MOOC, massive open online course on fad diets. Whereas the one about Adele following the cert food diet, they actually reached out then because we were good at busting diet myths to see if we would tackle the science, if there was any behind that. But it really helps you build relationships. And one of the key things about that is, because I've written for The Conversation since they got going in 2012, sometimes I've pitched an article to them and said, we want to write about this to help us recruit for our studies. And here's 3 examples of where we did that. So this was in a nutrition program for children and parents, the top one, and then we were recruiting women to a carbohydrate counting study, testing out an app, women who are pregnant, and then trying to recruit people into doing a survey around cooking and diet quality. So again, as I said, the media releases through your uni help with all range of things, from recruitment to releasing results. And once you get to know journalists, they are likely to come to you for your opinion, or you can go to them when you need stuff. The Newcastle Herald, because I've been working with them for just so long, they will help us with recruitment. And when it's online in particular, it's really effective when we just want to recruit local people. And I've already said those things. Another thing we do when we're recruiting is sometimes we infiltrate a Facebook blog group, and we always ask their permission if we can actually recruit. And normally it's in exchange for writing a blog for them, or some way that works for both of you. And that makes sense, doesn't it? Play fair, play by the rules. But working with the media can actually help you attract funding. And now I want to tell you a story. So one of the key things I did early in my career was to create a diet quality score for Australia. It was called the Australian Recommended Food Score, and I derived that from data from about I'll say 20,000 women participating in the Australian longitudinal study of women's health. I wanted to create a single variable that reflected how closely someone's dietary patterns aligned with the Australian dietary guidelines. And in doing that, I thought, I may as well also write how I scored this on paper and give it out to the people in my presentation. And what I noticed when I was giving the results of this study is that people were super interested in their own score. And an idea was born: what if I could put that score on the web and people could find out how healthy their dietary patterns were? So it took about 5 years to do that, to get the algorithms, to attract some small funding, to create the first ever healthy eating quiz that you can see there. It was very rudimentary, but I convinced Channel 10, who I'd been doing some consulting work for, to put it on their healthy living page. And I got like 70,000 people who filled that in, and that helped create population normative data. This score attracted young people, disproportionate to getting them into research. That led to me applying for a funding grant from the NIB Philanthropy Group, the NIB Foundation, to take this healthy eating quiz and turn it into a website. And there's the media release about what is now a 6-year partnership valued at a couple of $1 million. And we turned that score, in collaboration with young people who were using it, into a website to help them eat better. It's called No Money, No Time. And the name came from them because they said, hey, you fancy university people, we actually are interested in healthy eating, but we don't have any money and we don't have any time, and you'd have to solve that for us. And went, I think we can do that. And that's a great name. We're going to call the website Your Name. And what's in the website is now a couple of hundred hacks and myths where we bust all those nutrition topics. And when an Instagrammer or a celebrity is sprouting something that's not ridgy-dig, then we write articles about it there. We have about 250 recipes in there, and we made the filters on the left-hand side what the young people told us they wanted. They said, I've only got one pot. I've only got a microwave. The stovetop doesn't work. I'd have to be able to search for recipes just with that. And they told us that they wanted to be able to think more sharply or perform better at sport or healthy skin. So we made it so the recipes could be filtered that way. We showed them how, it's now $60 a week, by the way, but we showed them how that you could eat healthily and meet all your nutrients for $60 a week using simple recipes. And the healthy eating quiz is still embedded in it, but we created an infogram so that when they fill in their score, you can see how you compare to your age and sex-based population norms. You get feedback and you get linked back into the website. And here's the media monitoring for no money, no time, just for 1 year, 23, 24, a reach of nearly 9 million. Not surprising that a lot of that reach is through the website itself, through online. But I do so many radio interviews. It's hardly a radio interview goes by where I don't mention no money, no time. So you can see that my university is a winner in terms of how we spruik their name, because they actually host that website for us. And then in terms of policy impact, this is old, but I was my professional body did the systematic reviews to inform the previous dietary guidelines that got released in 2013. Some of my research was quoted in these dietary guidelines, but because I'd been involved in that and the conversation knew me, I was invited to comment when they were first released. So now I just want to show you a little bit of the journey. So I did my first brave tentative workshop, be proactive, way back in 1989. And then I worked, as I said, with local media. My profession decided they would actually take this media communication mainstream and core business in-house in 1999. And I was one of the inaugural spokespeople and remained so for 20 years for my profession. But doing that put my name out there. I was invited to co-write books with health journalists. I ended up being asked to consult to TV production companies, Biggest Loser, So You Think You Can Dance, Australian Survivor, Bachelor, and ensuring that nutrition information and nutrition care of people participating in those shows was paramount within the health and medical team. As part of that, I brokered a deal for my profession with Channel 10 to support Australia's Healthy Weight Week. You might not remember it, but it ran for about 5 or 6 years. And then I was invited to write for The Conversation, launched a healthy eating quiz. Because of the conversation, Dr. Carl on Triple J reached out. Would I come and be on Triple J? And I've continued to work with Carl and record shirtloads of science. That led to me to being invited to be a catalyst presenter on Ask the Doctor, getting the website up and running. And now the latest one is actually I've launched a podcast, Nutrition Science Bites, where I decide who I interview. And I'm interviewing all those PhD dietitians hiding around in Australia who have fabulous science to share. So we have stiff competition in my profession from the self-appointed gurus, often with limited qualification, but a very big marketing budget. And we need a really loud voice. And I think working with the media is one way of doing that. So where do you get decent information? You come to us. You come and find myself and my team. I bring my early career researchers along the journey of learning how to write for The Conversation. Having that experience, I pitched to my university massive open online courses. So the science of weight loss, dispelling diet myths, that's for the general public, 67,000 people from 180 countries. And then the next two are short MOOCs for health professionals. And even though my profession, my university is no longer hosting these MOOCs, we're now bringing them across to no money, no time. And when you get the feedback from people that the information we translate for them is the first time they've really understood that information, it's incredibly motivating to just keep doing more. And this is the podcast. So sign up to any good podcast, Apple, Spotify, and then review and like. That's our digital marketers' words that I was just telling you there. But there are some media rules of engagement, and that I think it's really important to understand, and then you won't get so offended with certain behaviours. You can always buy time. If a journalist rings you, you don't have to do an interview on the spot. You're always about to go to a meeting. So you ask, what's the deadline? And then work out whether you realistically can be prepared. It's always important when a journalist calls you, but never the other way back. So don't stress if they don't call you back. They've found somebody else and they're working on very short timelines. If you're being interviewed for a news article, it's only ever 30 seconds. So don't be disappointed that they didn't give your 5-minute speech that you gave to them. It'll be one teeny weeny grab. So what's the bottom line when a journalist asks you about your research? Radio, you usually only get 5 to 10 minutes and make 5 or 6 points, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Print is usually longer, but you need to be more careful because there'll be a quote lifted out, and TV is any length, but there's not that much television interviews around anymore. Interviews never end, even if they're theoretically ended, so be on guard. And the most important thing, if you're working at a university or research institute, know who your media contacts are. So in terms of the rules of engagement, who's listening? Talk to them. For my university radio station, the audience is pretty close to retirees' age. So I talk to grandparents, essentially. And people often say, oh, they didn't ask me the right question. Well, you can always get the right question asked by answering the question you've been asked and then bridging to one of your points. That's really wonderful. But the key point is the one that you prepared earlier. And when they say, would you like to add anything? So many people say, oh, no. But there's the opportunity for your call to action. Yes, it's really important that you put an extra vegetable in your shopping trolley each week. Media training is what boosts your conference. What you're offering, Augustina, for this month is so important. I still like to listen to what other people have got to say, so I'm really interested in Christy's presentation next. But this is my acronym. Every media training I've done always has an acronym on how to get your point across. So I decided I'd make my own, and I've copyrighted this to me. You're welcome to use it, but if you could acknowledge me, that would be great. So I think you should get to the point. Prepare 4 or main points for your audience. Order them to tell a story: who, what, when, where, why. Information and a number of examples, especially if there is a few statistics, and then always take them back. But let me show you what I mean. In 2015, the total revenue for vitamin supplements was $2.7 billion. For the 8 million Australians using complementary medicines, that could have paid for 3 visits to a dietitian to get personalised advice. Or if the money was spent on vegetables and we averaged that at $4 a kilo, that'd be 923 million serves. If we could convince supplement users to swap their complementary medicine dollars for fruit and veggies, that'd be 22 extra serves a week that they could eat. We need to make it as easy to access an APD as it is to access a bottle of supplements under Medicare. And if that's too much effort, then just show them what 22 serves of vegetables are. And I got my son's girlfriend to take this photo for me, which is 22 serves of vegetables in my kitchen. Please don't be boring. That's probably my main message. How boring is this? Australia incurs healthcare costs $50 billion per diet. That's really, really boring. But how about this? Is this a little bit more interesting? Yes, Australia's healthcare costs are $50 billion a year. That's $2,000 a person a year, or $6 a day. The government spends $2 billion on all types of prevention, $89 a year per person, 24 cents a day. 25 times more is spent on treating diseases that could have been prevented. We're asking the government to fund nutrition so vulnerable Australians can eat better and get better. Now that's way more interesting. I hope you agree. So here's your checklist. Lots and lots of media training. You can never do enough. Develop your own communication voice or style. Use social media. Know who your university contacts are. Work with your institute's communication platforms. They may already have someone. They'll be on LinkedIn for sure. Pitch to the conversation and do good science even when your funding is a bit scarce. And always think about what are the newsworthy angles of your research. If you feel scared, strap on some bravado and jump in and make your own impact. Thank you.
That was so fantastic, Claire. That was such a great presentation. So many little quotes that I've written down. And I see we already have one question from the audience. So I'm looking forward to hearing your answer to that afterwards. Let me just share my presentation again. Can people see can people see this? Um, yeah, so let's just go on to Christy's presentation. So I'll just introduce Christy quickly. She is the principal consultant at Zoc Mellon Health Promotion and Social Media Consulting. So this fits really well following on from Claire's presentation. Christy Shermer has a MPH and she has over 20 years experience working in health promotion and public health in Australia and in the UK as well. Her business, Zoc Mellon Consulting, she works with governments, not-for-profits, and startups on social media strategy and storytelling. Christy is an IUHPE registered health promotion practitioner and the co-founder of the Australian Public Health Consultants Network. She was prized with the South Australian Primary Healthcare Practitioner Award in 2014 and was recognized as one of South Australia's top 40 under 40 business leaders in 2018. She also has recently joined Cancer Council SA, where she works in cancer prevention and advocacy part-time alongside her consulting role. So I'll stop sharing and ask Christy to begin her presentation.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. And that is definitely strapped in and it was worth it. That was incredible. Thank you so much, Claire. That was just such a great presentation. Thank you. Let me just check that I am sharing. Can somebody just let me know, please, that you can see my slides and not my notes?
Yes, we can, Christy. All
Fabulous. Good. Okay. Well, folks, please stay strapped in because I'm taking everything that Claire has said and just focusing a little bit more on social media. So for the sake of kind of not sitting down and not moving for an hour, get your little typey fingers and pop in the chat what social media platform you spend the most time on. Is it Facebook? Is it Instagram? Is it TikTok? Is it LinkedIn? Let everyone know, confess, tell us what social media platform you spend the most time on. I would also like to acknowledge that I'm on Kaurna land, which is where I live and work, pay my respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are with us during this session or watching the recordings. Thank you for the introduction. For those of you who don't know me, I know I've got some old friends and some new friends on the webinar series. My name is Christy Shermer. My role is to help public health and health promotion focused organisations use social media to its fullest potential as a tool, as a weapon. We are up against it with commercial determinants, and I want health promotion practitioners, people working in public health, researchers like yourself, to use really kind of embrace social media and use it in the most effective way you can as a weapon for the work that you do. I'm available for strategy consulting. I do pick your brain sessions. I do lots of training and facilitation, all sorts of things in the health promotion, health communication, social media space. I've also been working at Cancer Council for the last 2 years part-time because, as well as social media, I am a registered health promotion practitioner. That is my background before social media ever came along. And I am particularly passionate about commercial determinants, especially things around junk food marketing and how commercial determinants impact the health and wellbeing of populations. And I also have a focus on physical activity there as well. Now, this isn't just to show some pretty pictures of me. I really want you to remember to take photos when you're out presenting, running workshops with people, with stakeholders, doing stuff in your everyday lives, in your work lives. Take photos and then you've got them for presentations. So that's just my little take home snippet. You'll never regret taking those photos, but you will regret not having them on hand. In the time I've got with you today, I want to talk about some of the risks and benefits of using social media for research communication. I want to give you some tips for finding your strategy and your voice online. I want to give you an update on what's happening in social media. My tagline is to help people keep up to date in a fast-paced social media world. So I want to kind of give you what's happening on this day in 2024 and what you need to know. Before you go, I've got a to-do list as well. These are your to-do list for LinkedIn. I'm going to leave that with you at the end. And when we come back at the end, there'll be time for questions for both Claire and myself. So if you want advice or need questions answered, go for it. I'm really happy for you to take photos or screen grabs of the slides. And even if you wanted to share them on social media, this is my handle at Zockmelon, and you'll find me on all of the social media platforms. Feel free to share and take that information. Just tag me in, and also you're more than welcome, and invite you to connect with me across all of the socials. So these are the reasons that you're probably here today and wanting to get as much information as you can because you're interested in these benefits. The first benefit of using social media for research communication is that you can hone some of those collaboration skills online. You can expand your own personal sources of knowledge. So you're not just producing content, you're consuming content at the same time. So you're learning as you go. There might be some exciting collaborations along the way. There might be increased profile and exposure, including those sort of extra citations and alt metrics that Claire beautifully demonstrated. Ideally, and I'm sure something that you're all hoping for, is that your research has an impact on the community and professional understandings of the work that you do. Heck, there might even be some increased funding opportunities, maybe. And the most ideal aspirational goal that I'm sure you all have is maybe with increased exposure, your loved ones might better understand what it is that you do. And we can all hope for that, because I'm sure all of us have plenty of loved ones in our lives who don't understand what it is that we do. But that's just all of the great stuff, right? Let's talk about some of the risks. I don't live in a social media utopia. I am well aware of the harms and the risks that come with having a digital footprint. The first of which is the time suck and the opportunity cost. So what else could you be doing with your precious time and your precious work life and your screen time? What else could you be doing with that? So I'm really upfront about that, and making your online actions and your time, ensuring that they are done with good intent and purpose. The second one that I want to acknowledge is burnout. That is a huge risk that comes with being online. I think that can come with all of our work, but particularly being online can lead to that sense of like that overwhelm and feeling frazzled, feeling like there's too much information going in, not being able to process it, unable to separate kind of work stuff and personal stuff, and all of the information that you are consuming, as well as that you are feeling the demand to produce, responding to comments, all of the things. And to that end, being online isn't safe. It's particularly unsafe for certain groups of people. You know who those groups of people are. And so being very, very upfront that trolling and online violence is real, and that is a huge risk to being online. And yes, there might be some things that you can do to mitigate that, but it will never go away. It's always going to be there. Well, that's pretty negative. But anyway, let's move on. I just want to be upfront about all of those things. So let's set the scene for what social media looks like and where we've come from and where we've gotten to today. So this is a timeline of the launch of some of the major social media and digital platforms since 2001. So some of these platforms have come and gone. Things like Google Plus you might never have heard of, or Periscope, which has now kind of been integrated into Twitter, or X as we know it today, is in the form of live streaming. What I want to convey with this slide is that social media isn't new. I've been working as a consultant in social media for the last 11 years, and I've been fascinated by what feels like this rapid change in the social media landscape, but also really this sense that now social media is part of our everyday lives, and it's part of the work of researchers as well. So just to kind of really give you that sense that Social media is here to stay, and this timeline will go on forever and it will evolve. The next thing that is really kind of changing the way that we work is AI. And I'm sure you will appreciate even just things like ChatGPT and the impact that that's had on education, on research over the past couple of years. So let's take a look at some social media stats. Now, straight up, again, I really need to acknowledge that there are such poor data around the types of users and how many users there are and a breakdown of their demographics in Australia because the platforms don't release that. Unfortunately, there's plenty of data that the social media platforms will release in terms of how much money, how you can target people and how much money you can spend to target the people you might want to through advertising. So Meta and Google will provide that. But really, there's not a great deal of data. So the data source that I use is this website called Social Media News, which is listed down the bottom. I like it because I find that it's a sensible approach to kind of having a best guess at the number of users of each of the different platforms in Australia. So this will give you a bit of a sense of the dominance of each of the platforms. So you'll notice straight away that Facebook and YouTube are the two main social media platforms. And I update this slide every year based on the data from January of each year. And those two really haven't changed. They've kind of stayed more or less the same for the past few years. Facebook continues to be the most popular social media platform in Australia, with YouTube kind of either being equal, second, or just below. Facebook really continues to be this department store of social media platforms. It's covers all of the things, right? So when you think about Facebook, you've got your news feed, you've got personal profiles, business profiles, you've got groups, you've got marketplace, you've got messenger, you've got so many of these different aspects trying to do all of the things. You've now got reels on Facebook as well. So Facebook is the thing that kind of takes all of the different aspects of every other platform and chucks it into its platform. And because it's got half of Australians using Facebook, who are able to be on Facebook and who are checking it regularly, right? This is monthly users, so these people have logged in that month. The advertising potential is huge. So that's how they measure how many people are on there. I'm sure you are all aware of YouTube as well. YouTube is a social media platform because users are creating content and uploading it, and there's that two-way communication on there, which defines it as a social media platform. If you haven't been on YouTube lately, YouTube has also experienced not just the horizontal videos that you're seeing now, but there is now YouTube Shorts, which are vertical videos, which are basically the exact same thing as TikTok videos or Instagram Reels or Facebook Reels, that vertical short form video. So you're seeing that kind of platform, that kind of content across all of the different types of platforms now. Once upon a time, I used to say that I recommended that you created different content for different platforms and that you behave differently in different platforms as you would behave differently in different rooms of your house because they're designed to do different things. I have a little bit more of an open mind and particularly around the acknowledgement that there's only so much time people have, especially ordinary people, not big brands with huge marketing departments, that there's this kind of expectation that you will be repurposing the same content and putting that across each of the different platforms. That's just really a reality of being across all of these different social media channels. I just want to move quickly to some of these other platforms as well. I want to talk about Twitter. So once upon a time, Twitter was my favorite platform for public health, for making change. With Elon Musk's takeover, Claire alluded to this, that Twitter is dead. I basically stopped advising and recommending people use Twitter because there was this mass exodus on Twitter as well, because it became this unstable, dangerous, racist place, really, in terms of an online space. People have migrated to other platforms, particularly LinkedIn, and to a lesser extent, Instagram Threads. but especially LinkedIn, and especially with that sort of professional public health research perspective, that's really kind of where people have gone. There were some other competitors or kind of attempts of things like platforms like Mastodon, which never took off, and people just kind of have tried to still have that connection, but really LinkedIn has kind of been the place that people have gone instead of Twitter. Now, that said, I've kind of check and dabble in on X occasionally just to see, sort of get a sense of who's still there. There are still researchers there. I still recommend just observing it and seeing how things are in your sector. So I'm not saying that you need to leave, but I'm saying that just observe it, engage. It's still, you're still going to get reach and things, but it's just not the same as it used to be. I'm going to jump now to talking briefly about TikTok. I believe that TikTok and that style of content in 2024 has the greatest influence of all social media platforms. I would say if you're starting out now and you're wanting to have that discovery, people discovering you, then TikTok is the place to go for that kind of fastest growth. In Australia, I've seen this huge growth of these micro communities across a whole range of health issues, from mental health, neurodivergence, anti-poverty, alcohol and other drug healthcare providers. This is where people are finding and gathering communities on TikTok. Let me explain what I mean. So this is a little bit of what Claire was talking about as well. There's this increasing blurring between traditional media and social media. So things that start on social media become mainstream news, and traditional media is being shared and discussed on social media, which kind of keeps the issues alive. One example of this is how TikTok is generating news stories. This is one that was about communities on TikTok leading individuals to seeking a diagnosis and support for autism and ADHD, which has been picked up widely now on mainstream media. To give you a little bit of inspiration, here is a collection of some scientists and science communicators who I follow and I have seen on TikTok, and I think that they're doing a great job across their various fields. So feel free to take a photo or a screen grab, look these individuals up. You'll find them, I expect, not just on TikTok, but across a whole range of social media platforms. Have a look to see if they are cross-posting, repurposing, posting the same kind of content, or doing different sorts of things across different social media platforms. But I think these folks are a great place to start from and look to for just some ideas and inspiration. There's a range of different professional backgrounds presented here. So I think that you'll find somebody, and once you get started, the algorithm will start finding people for you. Speaking of the algorithm and how content is discovered, hashtags are becoming less and less important. And in fact, Google is becoming less and less important. So there's some information coming out to suggest that TikTok search is where young people particularly are looking for answers to their questions. So instead of Googling something, people will just look it up on TikTok. Now, don't be horrified, because just like the generation before us, they were probably horrified that we were Googling stuff on the internet instead of looking things up in encyclopedias. This is just how the world is changing. I posted this earlier on my LinkedIn, but what is happening now is the TikTokification across all of the other platforms. This is a screenshot of screen record from my phone this morning that I captured when I was grabbing my morning coffee, and it looks like TikTok, or it looks like Instagram Reels or Facebook Reels. It's actually on LinkedIn. So these kinds of videos are what internet users and social media users are starting to want to engage with. It's the content that they're getting used to. This is actually now starting to creep into the LinkedIn user experience. So now is the time to start thinking about creating this kind of content in terms of your research communication, your science communication. And yep, they're all men. So just something to think about. There needs to be a much broader share of voice. So you're not just communicating your research to a wider audience with this kind of work, you're communicating yourself and your personal brand. So your personal brand is this sort of intersection between how you see yourself and how others see you. So I encourage you to play to your strengths. I'll just put this up here for the interest of time. Please feel free to, again, take a photo of this or a screen grab of this, but think about your strengths and then the kinds of platforms that will best sort of reflect where your strengths at. Everyone watching this will have different strengths. Some of you will love that kind of authority in speaking to mainstream media. Some of you don't like the idea of having the big TV cameras or being in a radio studio or anything like that, or speaking to kind of traditional media, but you might be very happy to just speak to your camera on your smartphone. So there is a type of content and a type of platform for everybody watching this. I always recommend, though, don't just stick to one platform, because just like in business, it makes good business sense to have multiple revenue streams to keep a business healthy. Just like that, it also makes good communication sense to focus on more than one channel and to focus on more than one type of content. So to finish up, I'm going to give you a huge list of things that you can do, really practical things that you can head over to LinkedIn and focus on now. This is a checklist. There's lots of things that you can do to already improve how you appear to your connections on LinkedIn. There's all these little things that LinkedIn have kind of created, extra features that you can connect to all of your institutions, talk about the qualifications and research that you've done, showing some of your links to different things that are already online, even just things like adding recording of your pronunciation of your name, updating your pronouns. All of these sorts of things can help to improve your presence on LinkedIn. So I'll just end my slideshow now. Please do connect with me. I'm happy to hear from anyone via email as well, or you're always welcome to slide into my DMs of any of the social media platforms with any of your questions. I look forward to connecting with you.
That was excellent. Thank you so much, Christy. It was really, really interesting to hear from all the different platforms and all the different ways that you can share your research. And there's so much out there. And also the point about it being, really, vulnerable. You said, you're advertising yourself too. So in a way, it's putting yourself out there really. And yeah, it's just interesting to see how people do that. Yeah, so many good snippets from both of your talks. Claire, you said one sentence, if we don't do it, who will? I think this is why it's so like this series is really important about communicating our research and really making sure that the evidence that we're publishing as researchers actually gets out there, because otherwise, who else is gonna take up this information?
Yeah, I agree. That's really important. And rather than complain, then people need to jump in. But I think the media training and like the support that Christy's talking about, that's just so important. When you agree, like the more you know about the social media platforms and all the media platforms, the more confident you'll be.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I see there was one question in the chat. It was actually from Christy for Claire. And just if some people didn't miss that, there was a question asking, what media invitations do you say no to? Are there any that aren't great use of your time? So if you could just answer that one for us.
Oh yeah, I definitely wouldn't do any of those 60-minute style sensational where they're more interested in like the drama rather than the answer. Definitely those. I probably decline now if like under time pressures. But if it's a topic where I know someone who can do that, then I will tell them where to go. Like still trying to be helpful for that journalist. Try this person, try that person. Go to my profession, they'll find you someone. But I definitely wouldn't do any of those, cheap shot. I get approached sometimes by like Instagrammer type people, and I'm not promoting non-scientific approaches.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. And so you said you trademarked the get to the point.
Oh no, I haven't trademarked it.
No,
I've
not
copyrighted it.
Copyrighted, yes, copyright. Is there I guess I'll ask you for the slide so I could just share that, or if there's a website where we can just see what it is if people didn't take note of it or take a photo of the slide, so we can share it on the socials for the series. And I see there's another question here from the audience. Are either of you using ChatGPT to help with your comms or posts?
I do.
No.
I do. Yeah.
Good. So one yes, one no. I'd love to hear
Even
your
just
answers.
things like coming up with ideas for media releases, or like just asking for 10 ideas for and you describe what your media release is about. Definitely I use it for that kind of thing. Even like social media posts, definitely I'll use it for coming up with ideas, or for tweaking, or for editing. AI is being baked into all of the social media platforms. So if you go into LinkedIn now, it will actually ask you, it'll prompt to say, do you want AI to reword this, kind of suggesting this is a bit shit, you can redo it. It's a premium feature at the moment, but maybe the public expectation is that something, it will be, there for everyone. But just, I think that's kind of going to be just part of our social media user experience.
I don't, because I guess it's something that we've already got. The only time I've used ChatGPT was when I was under time pressure to see what it thought about what I was thinking to present. And I guess it was helpful in that I go, oh, yeah, I've already thought of that. Or no, I wouldn't, like in crystallizing thought. But having said that, I think some of the features of ChatGPT-4, which looks a little bit more specific environment, might be useful. But I think the point is being open to what's coming up. And I would say different demographics in my team use different platforms more. So like for our No Money, No Time, it's actually currently our students and our most recent graduates who are doing the TikTok and the Instagram actually for our program.
Yeah, fantastic. And there's one last question. I know we have 2 minutes left, but if either of you can answer this quickly. Someone asks in the Q&A, I wanted to ask about the balance between more traditional media, like media unit or university, and social media, personal brand, and the alignment between the two. So yeah, I think this
it's a
person wants to
shorter
know about the balance.
timeline. It's a shorter timeline what you can control. Sometimes the university departments are really long wait. So if you've got a journal article that needs a media release, or you're recruiting, I would definitely go to your university or your institute. But if it's conferences and your own work, then you should be doing that. If you're still not feeling confident, just hang in for this whole month of webinars. Or if you've got funds, I would actually employ Christy and get her to come to your research team and get them to come and do a whole day for you. Or maybe they could actually ask you, Augustina, as well, to organise something more.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I think
Claire.
yeah, great plug, Claire. And there's also more traditional media training at SAMRI, and we'll hear more about that in week 4, actually. So a little condensed version of the longer media workshop that they offer here. This was fantastic. Thank you so much for both of you. We've reached time. So this was week 1 of our series of webinar. Next week, we have Dr. Ben Lewis from SAMRI and Dr. Ashley Geiger from SAGENCI. So it's a cancer research organization, and they'll be co-presenting actually together, not 2 different presentations, but together around finding your narrative. So it's shaping up to be a really interesting session. So I really look forward to seeing everyone. And please, let's all thank our 2 guests today, Christy and Claire. You were fabulous. Thank you so much. And our episode or our series today will be published on the HTSA website soon. So if you want to listen to this again or share it to other people, it will be on our website soon. So thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much, Augustina. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.